Okay, you see this article? Breonna Taylor and hundreds of black women have died at the hands of police. But you don't really see the same outpouring as much for females that are black that die at the hands of the police. So the movement to say her name is growing. And so it is growing, y'all. And so this is pretty serious, and it wasn't taken serious then, and I don't believe it's taken that serious as it should be now. But things could change. So this is by Donna M. Owens. And so no one sets out to be a Black Lives Matter martyr. But somewhere along the way last year, as mass marchers in Louisville, Kentucky, to Las Vegas chanted her name, Breonna Taylor became a symbol of change. So Taylor's fate was sealed in the wee hours of March 13th, 2020, when Louisville Metro Police officers burst into the 26-year-old's apartment home on a no-knock warrant, firing 32 bullet rounds and killing the emergency room technician as she stood in her hallway with her boyfriend who survived the gunshots. So now her death is bringing a new life to the stories of black women who have died at the hands of police in police custody, and those who have names and identities that have largely gone unknown and unacknowledged. And so, while the names of too many black men and boys killed by police like Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Philando Castile, Freddie Gray, Tamir Rice are widely known, black women's cases have rarely garnered national attention. And so a notable exception is Sandra Bland in 2015 in Illinois. A native was found hanged in Waller County, Texas jail a few days after a traffic stop by a trooper captured on video ended with her arrest, and her death was ruled a suicide, something her family has publicly disputed even till this day. So there's not a lot of data on the police involved deaths of black women as well. So no national registry exists. But the Washington Post has noted nearly 250 women, including 48 black women, have been shot and killed by police officers since the newspaper began tracking police involved shootings in 2015. And so this is not really widely known, but it's out there. It's just that I'm adding this in there. I've been on multiple threads where you'll hear people say, oh, it's not black women getting killed, it's black men. That's, sweetheart, that's because you haven't heard about the black women, because we are virtually invisible when it comes to our killings. So, going on, it says it was the death of 50-year-old Michelle Cassos in 2014, not long after the police shootings of Brown and Ferguson, Missouri, that drew the attention of African American police force. So, police in Phoenix were sent to Cassos' house, and I may not be pronouncing it correct, so correct me if I'm wrong on that name, or pronunciations, for the mental wellness check. So she answered the door while holding a hammer in one hand, and police shot her through the heart. Her mother, Fran Garrett, marched with her daughter's casket through the downtown of Phoenix weeks after her death, calling for an outside agency to investigate the particular shooting. So this was a catalyst for the Say Her Name campaign. And so this is the name you see that is posted here, Michelle Cassettes. So I may not be pronouncing it correctly. Sorry about that. So the start of the movement, the black girls as young as 7 and black women in their 90s have been killed by police, and for a long time nobody was talking about it, said Kimberly Crenshaw, co-founder of Executive Director of African American Police Forum, AAPF, abbreviated. So, the creator of the Say Her Name campaign. So, anti-Black racism is experienced in gendered ways as well. So, elevating this message is important to give a holistic view of the expose that Black women and girls are not exempt from the abusive policing practices as well. And so, a professor of the law of UCLA and Columbia Law School, Crenshaw, 61 years, is a leading authority of Black feminist legal theory, race, and civil rights, who developed such terms as intersectionality and critical race theory, which examine the systems that perpetuate racism as well. And so, right here you are seeing Kimberly Crenshaw, a co-founder of the Executive Director of African American Policy Forum, wears a hoodie and the names of the Black daughters and sisters and wives and cousins and community members killed by the hands of police. And so this is her pictured here. And so wearing a white hoodie with the names of the Black daughters, sister, wives, cousins, community members killed by police, she explained the origins of Say Her Name during the Zoom interview. So back in 2014, AAPF, the Center of Intersectionality Social Policy Studies, CISPS at Columbia, launched the campaign to bring awareness to the often forgotten or invisible victims and give their families support as well. So the following May, we host we hosted the first Say Her Name vigil in New York's Union Square. She said relatives of at least about 16 Black women killed by police assembled from around the country. So soon after, AAPF CISPS released a groundbreaking report, Say Her Name, Resisting Police Brutality Against Black Women, co-written by Crenshaw, Andre J. Ritchie, a lawyer and activist. It outlined the objectives of the movement, providing an intersectional framework for understanding Black women's susceptibilities to police brutality and state-sanctioned violence and killings as well. I'm adding that in there. There is an impact in the community, and feeling terrorized. The goal of terrorism is to not just harm individuals, but to put terror in their hearts, a whole community, and that is what police violence like that kind that was done to Breonna Taylor experience does. Ritchie, author Invisible No More, the author of that, and police violence against Black women and women of color. Ritchie, who works independently with or from AAPF, spoke recently with the Bergen County NJ, our New Jersey record. Part of, hopefully I said that, New Jersey NJ record, part of the USA Today network. And so, and of course, the community has risen up in a resistance and said that we are not accepting this, but we are not going to be terrorized. But the reality is that it's the impact. So the grief of the mothers, historians say Black women have long been terrorized, raped, beaten, worked to be the bone, or worked to the bone to be as far back as since 1619, since the enslaved Africans arrived to the British colonies of Virginia. And so there have always been untold, undocumented stories of violence against Black women and girls. So Corsonia Wise Whitehead, Associate Professor, African and African American Studies at Loyola University, Maryland. Some incidences foreshadow the public outrage seen today. Whitehead cited 1984 case of Eleanor Bumpurs, 66 years of age, an elderly disabled Black woman gunned down by New York police as authorities tried to evict her from a public housing apartment. And so the back rent she owed was less than $100. And so it reminds us of the challenges associated with being Black and being a woman in this country as well, in America. So we need, and just period, so we need the space to say their names, push this hashtag forward into the daily lexicon. and remind people that the violence against our people does not stop at the gender divide. Whitehead says, but Say Her Name campaign, which is largely funded by philanthropic partners, focuses on direct advocacy. For instance, Crenshaw hosts an annual Say Her Name Mothers Weekend, bringing together mothers who have lost daughters to police violence for a dialogue, dinner, and pampering as well. So the organization works to meet the specific needs of each family with providing temporary housing, financial stipends as well, if necessary and needed. But most important is safe space where mothers can construct a community of support, whether they need empathy or information on how to mobilize and advocate for racial justice as well. So I'm a mother of a beautiful black woman whose life was snuffed out by police. This is Gina Bass, an Iowa native who lives in Washington, D.C. There is no pill I can take to alleviate this pain. So Beth's daughter, India Kager, 27-year-old Navy veteran, postal worker, and a mother of two kids, was killed in September of 2015 by Virginia police SWAT team as she sat in her car at a 7-Eleven with a father of her 4-month-old baby. The child was in the back seat when this incident occurred. So Best filed a wrongful death lawsuit in 2018. The jury ruled two of the officers were responsible, and the award was $800,000 to Kager's minor children. So the rage proposals propels me forward, said Bess, who noted that there are police officers in her family as well. So I modulate my grief in order to reclaim the narrative of the life of my daughter. I don't care to forgive the men who did this. They have wreaked havoc and destruction and pain as well. So the mothers have become, as Crenshaw put it, a sisterhood of sorrow. And so they regularly text and call and visit one another, I guess, to basically support each other. So Corinne Gaines, 23 years old, was riddled with bullets in her Baltimore County home. In August of 2016, the gunfire also seriously injured her 5-year-old son. Police had shown up to serve a failure to appear warrant from a traffic violation, and hours-long standoff ensued with Gaines, who was armed with a shotgun, filming on her cell phone and posting live on social media as well as this whole thing unfolded. And so most of us saw that. I remember seeing that. So the one word to describe how I feel is broken, said her mother, Rhonda Dormius. Since her death, my family has been in turmoil. Alcohol abuse, anger issues, emotional trauma has been so profound. So as the matriarch, I must be there for everyone. So at 4 a.m., my daughter was screaming, crawling on the floor, crying, saying that she wished it would have been her instead of her sister. So in 2018, a jury awarded Gaines' family $37 million in the wrongful death lawsuit. And so the verdict was overturned by a judge in 2019, but later reinstated by a higher court. So you see how that plays out, where one thinks, oh, we're going to change things back the way they were, and then one says, no, let these people have their peace and closure after this wrongful death. And so the will of the people was done, said the family attorney, Wendell Gordon of the jury, the original verdict. And so now the county needs to show some accountability and financial responsibility for the harm police caused this family for generations on to come. So the Fraternal Order of Police, with 350,000 members, is the nation's largest law enforcement labor organization. So after the death of George Floyd in 2020, National President Patrick Yoes released a statement saying, in part, police officers should at all times render aid to those who need it, and police officers need to treat all of the citizens with respect and understanding and should be held to the very highest standards for their conduct. So, accountability and hope. Congress has taken up police accountability. On March 3rd, the House of Representatives passed the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act 2021. So the bill is intended to hold police accountable, change and uh, culture of law enforcement, and empower communities. So it also seeks to build trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve by addressing systemic racism and bias to help save lives. So black communities have suffered from police abuse for as long as we have been here. And so Representative Karen Bass, a Democrat of California, who's introduced the measure None of Us Are Safe, is essentially law enforcement can treat us any way they choose. Okay, so Chanel Helm is a Black Lives Matter Louisville organizer who has led demonstrations in the city since last May when Taylor's death case became national news. Okay, Breonna Taylor. So very intense protests took place during that time, and that very first night, police used tear gas on us, and they were shooting pepper bombs or pepper bomb bullets. And so Helm said this. So someone was murdered by the state in a pandemic while people were fearful losing their homes. The disrespect. We have been saying Breonna's name ever since and trying to get justice ever since. So none of the three officers involved were charged with her death. None of them. So one was indicted on a charge of wanton endangerment and has pleaded not guilty. Two have been terminated from their jobs. So Taylor devastated. Her family is devastated, keeps her legacy alive. Crenshaw has reached out to Taylor's mother, Tamika Parker, in the past year to connect her with other grieving mothers. Okay, and so here we see Michael Brown Sr. hugs Juniah Palmer until Freedom Rally, Louisville, Kentucky, August the 8th, 2020. Both have lost loved ones in police shootings as well. So Michael Brown Jr. In Ferguson, Missouri, 2014. Breonna Taylor, March 2020. Okay, so Taylor's younger sister, Juniah Palmer, is a college student who was sharing the apartment with Taylor when she was killed. So she remembers fun, simple memories doing cartwheels with her siblings and going to car washes as well. So she feels Taylor's presence, and like I really do. And so, yet, despite her grief and pain, there is hope. So, when I see the images of Taylor, Breonna Taylor, people painting images of my sister, or I'm saying this for her, it makes me feel joyful because it makes me feel like people are still thinking about her, she said. So, indeed, the world is thinking about Breonna Taylor and saying her name, and perhaps they will now whisper, shout, speak the names of other black women as well. And so that's pretty much the article. I just wanted to put that out there because a lot of people don't realize that black women also are killed, and there's been hundreds of them. It's just that you're not really hearing as much media press about it as you do the males. And so that just goes to show you the gender divides that go on as well in these incidences. Not only race plays a part, but gender as well. And so you have black women who are killed, and we're like viewed as being really insignificant when it comes to anything. So even in a race issue, when black women are murdered, it's not looked at as in high regard as it is the male counterparts, which is sad. It should all be looked at in the same, you would think, the same lens, like, oh, the killing is killing no matter who's being killed, race, age, color, or whatever. But when you look at in this particular thing, they're looking at all of the men, and you're not looking at the focus on the women as well at the same time. And so it should be equal um, regard to the killings of not only just the males but also the females as well. And so they even noticed it even in the protest and how they were treating this situation. And so that's how you can see how women are viewed. And then when you put race into it, how black women are viewed. And so, having said that, I'm going to let this video go. What do you think about it? I think that this still happens even till this day. When black women are killed, it's not really publicized as much. It's not taken serious. It's not looking into high regard to protest and on the behalf of black females who are killed. Um, so that's the sad part about it. So having said that, I'm going to let this video go. Thanks for listening.